Do it.
WV Uncommonplace. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episodes. The Uncommonplace digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to Uncommonplace.
Howdy, everybody. My name is J.R. Sparrow. You all know me by now. Welcome to WV and Commonplace Interviews and Sessions. Today, we're thrilled to have the one and only Annie Korzen with us, an author, an actress, an accidental influencer who made waves on TikTok and beyond. Annie, thank you so much for joining us. Please answer the nostalgic question, who is Annie?
Who is Andy? Oh my goodness. Well, you've already said a lot. I'm 86 years old. I've had this bizarre adventure in my life of becoming a social media star at this advanced age. And I think I'm fun. I think I'm funny. I think I'm wise. I think I have some inspiration to give because, when you've lived as long as I have, you've made a lot of mistakes. And I've been privileged to learn from those mistakes. And so you can benefit from my failures. I don't know. Is that saying I'm a New Yorker? I'm living in exile in Los Angeles, but I will always be a New Yorker at heart. Does that kind of cover it?
Yeah, that covered it to a degree. So let's do something. Let's go back to the beginning real quick. What led you to pursue acting?
Well, everything I've done in my life, I've been a late bloomer. So I didn't start out, I was brought up to be a piano teacher. And that's what I was. And I was married and I had a kid. I was a stay-at-home mom. And then gradually I just got more and more interested in acting. I belonged to an improvisational children's theater group in New York, but I got to tell you, I am definitely not an overnight success. I had a lot of very lean years as an actor, just doing tiny bit parts or extras in movies. It wasn't until my big little break came, which we will talk about, that things kind of started my stock started to go up a little bit.
Okay, and your big break, I'm going to let you announce this. You were on what I consider, for my age demographic, it was one of the comedy contemporary shows. You were on Jerry Seinfeld. Let's just get out of the way. You were on Seinfeld.
And I'll tell you something funny about that happened. I only got it because a better known actress turned down the role that I was given. She never heard of the show. This was very early on. I started in 91. She never heard of the show. She thought the part was too small. And I have, you know, in my book, which we'll talk about, the Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an Accidental Loser, I have a theme, I have a mantra, JR, which is when anybody asks me to do something, my response, I like to make my response, yeah, why not? Because I feel you never know what something's going to lead to. I don't regret anything I've ever done. I only regret the things I haven't done. So my agent said, do you want to do this? And I said, well, yeah, why not? To me, it was just a day's work. I had no idea what it would lead to. And when I did it, and we watched the episode, the first episode I'm in is a classic episode called The Pen. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I did.
We're down at the condo in Florida. Somebody gives Jerry the astronaut pen. And my husband watched it and he said, well, I don't get this show. It's not about anything. Famous last words, right? Because now he watches at least 2 or 3 episodes every single night. So anyway, my point is that I took a chance on something rather than turn it down. And this other actress messed up by saying, no, I never heard of the show. It's not enough lines. And when I did that job, I didn't know that character of Doris Clompus would become recurring. I didn't know that they would also give me a second role. I actually played 2 different roles on Seinfeld. And being associated with that show, suddenly got me more respect. I was getting more auditions. I was getting better jobs. I was getting better pay. So, in other words, taking a chance, saying, yeah, why not? Totally changed my professional life.
And I'm glad to hear that, because that's a remarkable character. I just want to ask one last question about her. What was it about the character that stood out to you after you were done being her on the Seinfeld show?
Well, I've played that kind of character a lot. It's very familiar to me. I grew up with women like that, kind of a very brusque New Yorkie type Jewish woman. Those are the women from my childhood. They kind of seem tough on the outside. They're actually very warm and melty and loving on the inside, but you don't see that on the surface. And so it's very familiar to me. I am that kind of woman myself. Although I think I'm a little pleasanter than my character, but still.
Okay,
It
okay.
wasn't, I'm saying it wasn't a big stretch for me to play that character.
So it was almost one and the same to a degree.
Something like that.
Okay, okay. Now you've had a varied career: film, TV, theater, writing, and that's amazing. Thank you for doing all that in one scope because it truly makes you really. You have a lot of fundamentals. How does
Well,
go ahead?
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I've done a lot of things because when you're a freelancer like I am, and you're not a huge success, um, in order to earn a living, you've got to do more than one thing. So yes, I teach storytelling and I write magazine articles and I do storytelling for the Moth and I do this TikTok thing. I love being creative, but I also you can't just stick in it's very hard to stick in one narrow category unless you're a big star, which I have never been. So, and I like the variety. I like doing one thing and then doing another thing. It's kind of fun.
Now, before we get to the book, you started a writing career. You have essays that appeared in the New York Times, the LA Times. What inspires your humor, and how did you discover your unique voice as a writer? Because I know that people that are comedians, you write your material and things like that. But how does that translate to you writing essays? And then we'll go into the book in just a moment.
Well, I started acting as an improv, as doing improv. And when you do improv as an actor, I realized, hey, I'm really writing on my feet because that's what improv is. So I thought, well, if I can write on my feet, maybe I can write on a clipboard, I'm sorry, what's wrong with me? On a keyboard. Um, and I've always had a sense of funny. I've always had a sense of humor. Uh, and so I thought I could combine those two things, ability with words and ability with humor, and see where I could get with that. And it's been a fun journey. Um, I don't know if you know the Moth. You ever listen to the Moth? If you listen to the Moth, which is great storytelling, it's themoth.org. You can hear me on there, and I've toured with them. But storytelling is a big new literary art form, like David Sedaris. Um, and I've I like that form. What it is you tell a story in like instead of writing a whole novel, you write a personal essay. It's like 2 or 3 pages of one humorous event that happened to you. And I have many of those. And so when I got this book, I got the book deal as a result of having the TikTok platform. And so the book is really a collection of the kind of humorous observations that I make on TikTok. In other words, I tell stories about my life, but that apparently are relatable to other people. So stories about growing up without money, about thrifting, about parenting, about dating, about marriage, about restaurants and travel, all the things that interest me, which I assume interests other people. But as I say, since I have all kinds of life experience, I think I have some wisdom to share. And I'll tell you something funny, JR. When I get stopped on the street by my fans, guess what? They're all in their 20s. They're all kids, which is amazing to me. And I say to them, well, you're a million years younger than I am. Why are you following me? And what they use a word, you tell me what this means. They say, because you're authentic. Now, what do you think that means?
To me, my definition of being authentic, or just the word authentic, it's like it's a form of. I mean, it's just being realistic. There's, like, I don't know how to put it in the best terminology. I'll just say it like this. It's not opaque. You're transparent. And a lot of,
Transparent is a good word. I think
right.
they know that I mean what I say and I say what I mean, that I'm very blunt and I'm very honest. And I'm going to tell you something funny because this is another important theme from the book. All of my life, I have been criticized for being too talkative, too opinionated, too outspoken. I was told these were unattractive qualities, especially in a woman. Thank you very much. And I've always apologized for that. So now here's the great miracle. My TikTok followers, and oh, by the way, I have like almost half a million followers on
Ooh,
TikTok. They celebrate me for the same qualities that I spent my life apologizing for. They like that I'm talkative. They respect my opinions. They like that I'm outspoken and frank and honest. So, another theme of the book is do not be imprisoned by other people's negative opinions of you. And we've all experienced people tell you, you're too this, you're too that, you're too fat, you're too quiet, you're too blah, blah, blah. Why not saying, this is who I am, and I will find people who cherish me for it, and I will not apologize. I mean, unless you're evil, unless you're doing bad things to people, but if you're not harming anybody, I think you should take pride in who you are, whoever that is. Do you agree?
yes, I do. I do think you should. And I thank you for being the person you are. Now, real quick, something that we got to do that's really nostalgic to this show is we do this thing called the shameless plug so people can know where they can meet and greet you across the internet and anything that you have going on that we need to let the world know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll say once again, the book is The Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an Accidental Influencer. You can get on Amazon or Barnes& and Noble. And I have a website. You can get me at anniekorzen.com. You get me on TikTok, Korzen. Oh, and I just started a YouTube channel. This is brand new. So it's Annie Korzen Videos at YouTube. I'm on Instagram, but I still haven't figured out how to use it because it's all pictures. I don't quite understand. I'm not very good at Instagram. I'm not even good at anything on it. It's just that's why I say it's a total accident that I got onto TikTok. It only happened because a 30-year-old friend insisted that I do it. I thought it was a crazy idea, but I said my usual, okay, yeah, why not? And the rest is history.
Okay, now let's dive into this book, The Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an Accidental Influencer. Now, you told us a little bit about what motivated you to write this, right? But I want you to do this for me, and this is going to help other people that aspire to be authors. When you started writing this book and you got in the middle of the book, was there a point where you just stopped for a second and said, "Man, this is therapeutic," or did you say, "Man, this is a release"?
That's an interesting question. This is an unusual situation because I did not start with a blank page because the book is a collection of stories I have written over the years. So a lot of this material already existed. But yes, there were certain passages, there were certain places in this book. I'm a humorist, I'm not a stand-up. So sometimes I get serious and I get emotional. And there are certain places of the book where I go to darker places that when I originally wrote them, I wasn't sure I could because they could be too emotionally dark. And actually, writing honestly about those times were, as you say, extremely therapeutic. For example, I have a chapter about I had a very serious postpartum depression when I became a mom. And it's an area I never wanted to go back to in my life. It was too painful. I was too guilty about it. And when I started writing about it, I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can go there. But I forced myself because I knew it was important to be honest about that period in my life. And writing it was very, very liberating. And it's actually become one of my signature stories. When I'm asked to perform places, lots of times people will ask for that particular story.
Okay, okay. Now, if anyone aspires to write their story, what would you tell them? What should be the first process they go through when they're ready to just say, "Hey, I'm ready to put this to paper, either pen or typing or on a computer"?
Well, what I have found, but first of all, to be honest, to be totally open, not hold anything back, when I teach writing, there are two things that are often the problem. Uh, one is endings. I think people tell a story, but when they come to the ending, they don't put it into a larger context. In other words, what does this story mean to the rest of the world? What have you discovered through this journey that has made you wiser or happier or healthier or smarter? What is you've discovered through this journey that will inspire other people? I think people leave that out. And also editing. I think people can be good writers, right? They have a good voice, they have a good handling of language, they have interesting things, but they do not have the discipline to take out the irrelevant stuff. So they leave everything in, every fact. I just read of somebody I know who's writing a memoir. She handed me 345 pages, and it's like she talks about every single person she ever met in her life. How about focusing on the important things? Is this section really important? Is this story really important? And with that, you really need help. You need another person's eyes. Most writers cannot edit their own material sufficiently.
Okay, okay.
It's
Now,
okay to get all down on the page, but then somebody has to come in, unless you're good at it yourself, and really get it down to what's really relevant.
all right, thank you for that. Now, one thing I do on this show, I pay homage to a news magazine that I grew up with on Friday nights. And that news magazine had John Stossel, who was a comic relief. It had Elizabeth
Wait
Vargas.
a minute. What was I didn't get that. What was the magazine called?
The news magazine come on Friday nights. It was called 2020. Um, with
Oh,
John
oh,
Stossel.
you're on television. Wow. Oh, I think I had a friend who was a producer there. That was a good show.
Yeah, it had John Stossel on there. He was a comedic relief. It had Elizabeth Vargas and Diane Sawyer, and they were very poignant with interviews. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
there was one person in particular, and her name was Barbara Walters, the late great Barbara Walters. She could ask a certain amount of questions that either two things happened. The news station let it stay on till a little bit past 11, or if she fell flat in her interview, because she wasn't always perfect, they cut her off at 11 o'clock. So, Annie, are you ready for your 2020 question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This is your fun question. This is your John Stossel question. All right, when you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you do?
So when I wake up in the first morning, the first thing I do is panic at the thought of how overwhelmed I am of everything I've got to accomplish that day. I wake up with a to-do list in my head, and I wish that weren't true. But I wake up thinking, oh my, I've got to prepare for this podcast. I've got to do this. I've got to write this. I've got to clean this. I've got to buy. I mean, so I wake up with that list of things in my head that I have to do. That's the first thing that happens when I get up in the morning.
Okay, so what is the first beverage you have in the morning?
As soon as I wake up, I try and have a glass of maybe water mixed with fruit juice.
Okay, so no coffee?
Not yet. I don't have I do that intermittent fasting thing, so I don't eat until around 10:30 or 11.
Okay, so good.
I
So
don't have breakfast yet. So I have sort of what you might call brunch.
okay, so now after that, what's the first pollution you put in your body? Now let me give you an example of pollution. Um, for me, for instance, I have a thing where there are certain TV shows from my lifetime that I like to watch. Sort of like, remember the show with Vicki Lawrence, Mama's Family?
Oh, I've been watching that recently. I haven't been watching Mom. I've been watching old Carol Burnett shows,
Okay,
and
so
they
then
often have scenes. I love Mama's Family. I love it.
all right, so that's the pollution I like to watch because it reminds me of my grandmother that's now deceased, and it's a pollution to a degree because I'm just watching TV for no reason. But it's something I like to do in my afternoon if I can take time during my lunch break because I get an hour-long lunch break. So I need to take 30 minutes and dedicate it to something.
I see what you're saying.
So
Okay.
what's the first
Uh,
part of bit of pollution you put in your body or around you?
Fun question. I like this question. It's fun. Uh, my pollution, my daily pollution is since I'm at the computer all day long, either writing or corresponding or doing them, I cheat away from my work and I play a game called Words Play. It's a word game that you play alone. It's not competitive. You play against yourself. Words Play, I play that. And now I'm addicted to this thing I'm not smart enough for, the New York Times Connections game. So those are two.
Oh, yes.
Try the New York Times Connections game.
Hmm.
I can't get it. I thought I was a smart person. I'm not as smart as I thought of. But that and words play. And then if I'm on my phone, I go to Words with Friends. So I'm a word person. I like word games, but I can do a little too much of it. I get addicted and but those are my pollution things.
Now, I'll tell you what just happened here, right? Because we know about interactions things. So the reason why that was your John Stossel question, because you smiled differently than you've done the whole time we've talked. Because when you started thinking about
Really?
yeah, your smile went different.
Really? Oh, that's so funny. It's a fun question. I like that.
Yeah, so I always love doing that. Now let's get to Elizabeth Vargas and Diane Sawyer. Now, there's one word in the English dictionary called success. Success is something that people like, they put too much around it. In my opinion, success is actually failure for me. It's a lesson learned. It's something that's going to help me not make a mistake in certain areas the next day. I don't necessarily want success to have uh, a superlative to it. I wanted to have, it needs no reward. I want my success to be like whatever I did yesterday. If there was a flaw in it, I might pick up the pieces and do it right, or I might fail again. But the one thing that is constant though is that I'm learning from a lesson. That's success to me.
Well, you're very wise. I do think, it's funny because sometimes I say there's not enough emphasis on failure. We don't allow kids to fail anymore, right? Everybody gets a degree, first grade, they have graduation ceremonies from kindergarten and first grade. And I'm saying what you're saying, but in a different way. Failures are very important because we learn from them. If you don't fail, you're not getting better at what you do. So I think a lot of success comes from having failed. But does that
That answers it.
you relate to that in any
Yeah.
way? So I'm proud to say I have failed a lot.
Right. Here goes your next question. When you see a glass of water, is it half full or half empty?
Unfortunately, I'm the half empty type. I tend to be a little pessimistic, a little depressed, a little anxious. I'm not happy, happy, happy all the time. I wish I were. I'm grateful. I have a lot to be grateful for. I have a wonderful family and live in a nice home, but I tend to focus on, gee, there's not enough money, there's not enough this, I wish I'd travel more. I tend to an unhealthy degree to focus on the negative, and I'm still working on that, even at my age. I'm still trying to change that around. I was brought up that way. My mother was like that. That was a lesson I learned as a child.
Okay. Okay. Now here goes your Diane Sawyer question. You're an author. You wrote a book. You've been in film. You've been all over multimedia, basically. What is your favorite title when you are done working for the day and you're just sitting down at your table and you're about to drink that glass of water or fruit juice? What's your favorite title to look at or just to acknowledge?
I'm not sure I understand this question. A title.
Like for instance, you're an author, you're an actress. Like you have
But I
to
mean,
so like when you sit down basically like for me, for instance, I'm a podcaster. So when I sit down at the table, I just think of myself as a normal person. I don't think about any of my titles or anything I do, outside of just being a normal human.
be
Like,
my own titles of what I do.
yes, ma'am.
I'd like to be thought of as a comedic storyteller, someone who tells humorous stories, but that have a serious point. And I love doing that best. I love performing my own words. Uh, so that's kind of the problem is it's not a very well-known title. People know actress, writer, author, but to say storyteller, comedic storyteller, that's not a very common, but that's really what I do. I guess I would have to say humorist then. I'm a humorist. I see life through a humorous lens.
Okay, now here's a serious question. This is one of your Barbara Walters questions. You have been interviewed by Oprah, and you've been interviewed by someone that I love, Tavis Smiley, and Dr. Phil. That's an incredible list of people that you have been interviewed by. But in your opinion, what was the greatest topic you were ever interviewed about?
Uh, I have to think about that. Well, what I write about my favorite topic. And my favorite topic is me. Because I feel that studying myself and my weaknesses and my failures, I am finding wisdom. So when somebody talks to me about me, I feel, I mean, of those three, my favorite interview, I guess, was with Mr. Smiley. But even though I'm not a fan of the show, Dr. Phil really did talk to me about what it means to be aging in this country, what it means to be an older woman, because this country is a very ageist country. Older women are constantly disrespected, constantly dismissed, constantly just waved aside. And I truly resent that. And so he gave me a chance to talk about that.
Okay, okay. Now, you accomplished a lot in your life. Um, you've had a whole gamut of feelings, and um, you've gone through something that I heard you talk about the standoffish type of attitude of the world about being a woman, and then some people would title you as being outlandish or brash or something like
Oh,
both.
right, right.
And now in this generation set, things are more celebrated. So my question to you is, you have lived quite a while. What has been the best decade of your life, and what generation of people do you feel are more accepting of everyone? Because me, I'm just from 1985. So from 85 up, I consider my generation 85 through 90. Like we're like, I consider us like the last great generation because, we were here
Mhm.
we were here before the internet got crazy. We were here through the birth of all of this stuff.
Well, I can't talk about the whole world. I can just talk about my personal experience.
Yes.
And my personal experience, believe it or not, my 80s have been my greatest decade because this is where I start to feel that whatever talent I have, whatever brains, whatever humor, whatever intellect is finally being appreciated by a very, very wide audience. And that's been a miracle to me. I had to wait a long time for that to happen. So I would definitely say my 80s have been my most exciting and most fulfilling decade. And in my own life, the decade that has given me personally the most hope are now these kids in their 20s who get me, who appreciate me. And I'll tell you something funny. As an actress, I've been always told that I'm ugly. They don't use that word. They say she's too charactery. What it really means is I'm too ethnic looking, I'm too Jewy looking to play. How shall I say it? If a casting call went out today for an attractive older woman, I would not be on that list, JR, because I'm not considered attractive by Hollywood. And I've dealt with that all my life, and I always felt it was true that I was ugly, that I was unattractive. These 20-year-olds on TikTok, they tell me I'm beautiful. They tell me I've got style. They tell me I've got class. They like my clothes. They like my jewelry. They like my hair. I have spent my whole life never, ever hearing those words from my peers. Okay. So this has been a miracle to me. And I hope that that generation can do things that are evil in the world, like right now, about the planet and about peace and about all those big things that seem to be slipping away from us. But at least I can say, in my own experience, I'm very grateful, oddly enough, to that Are they called Gen Zs? Is that what they are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Annie, I didn't mean to call you ma'am. We talked
That's
earlier.
right. It's a Southern form of politeness. I respect that. I respect it. It's okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I'll tell you this. Now, I lived in Virginia all my life, right? And then, for most of my life, and then at one point, I moved to West Virginia, and I live there now. And in West
Yeah.
Virginia, I live at the Mason Dixon line, so I'm the south north and the north south. Because
Wow.
right there.
Wow.
And it's like there's a difference in people. But I will say one thing that oddly strikes me with each North and South. People think that humility and the manners and stuff are different. And I will honestly tell you this. I don't care if you're from New York, Connecticut, or if you're from Alabama or from Mississippi. Every
Yeah.
everybody is the same until 6 o'clock at night. 6 o'clock at night, people in the North move faster than people in the South, even if they're in big cities.
Oh,
And that's
yes, that's, people in all, I mean, even for me in California, I think people here are so slow compared to New York. I can't stand it. I'm like, come on, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, fast, fast, fast. Right, you're absolutely right.
right. And like I said, before 6 p.m. EST, you're fine. But when it hits 6 o'clock, you better be able to move and you better know that everybody goes on crazy expressions. And I'm not talking about linear, they go up and down and everywhere, and me, you both going and being in New York City. There's so many modes of transportation and ways to move that, like when I was in Los Angeles, like you were there or there now, you know, driving in a car is one thing, but there's so many ways to get places in New York.
That's right. And a lot of it is on foot. You just walk, you just move, you cross that street, even if the light is red. If there are no cars coming, you cross the street. You don't stand and wait. But I want to go back for a moment to something we mentioned before about calling me ma'am. Uh, one of the many ways, this is an example of how older women are disrespected. So I'm in a restaurant with my husband, right? And the young guy comes over and he says to my husband, would you care for a cocktail, sir? And then he turns to me and he says, and how about you, young lady? Now, I think he should have said, and what would you like, ma'am? In other words, calling me young lady is an insult. Since I'm clearly not a young lady, it's like he thinks he's being not flirtatious, but he thinks he's being complimentary, but it's not. It's condescending. I'm a grown woman. I'm not a young lady. Don't call me young lady. It's an insult. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
rather say
Yes.
if my husband is sir, then I should be ma'am, right?
Right. And there shouldn't be any situation where it's not. Now, here's one thing that got me, right? And I'll tell you this. I was in where was I at? Oh my gosh, I was in Providence, Rhode Island. This was about 2 years ago. A lady a little bit my senior, I opened the door for her. And
Okay.
I opened the door and I stepped back because that's something that I was taught. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If I'm entering somewhere and there's more than two people behind me, I'm going to let them go in.
Okay.
And the lady pulled me to the side and she said, "Why did you hold that door for me?" And I said, "Ma'am, I hold the door for everyone." And she said, "Well, be mindful that not everybody wants you to hold the door for you." And I'm like,
Oh, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I can't tell you how moronic I think that is. I want doors open for me. I want chairs moved out for me. I think it's a form of politeness. I think it's a form of, I don't want to say sex play, because obviously you didn't mean anything sexual by it, but there is a certain grammar, physical grammar between men and women that I think is fine. It's a form of politeness. It's a form of consideration. I don't like having a door slammed in my face. And I mean, that's just stupid. I you can open the door for me anytime, JR. I
I
will not
appreciate
be
it. Well,
insulted.
my mother and father raised me to be chivalrous. Like you got to have a little chivalry to you. It doesn't matter if you're male or
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree. I notice, you know how I notice a lot? My husband is Danish, and Danes are by nature more formal and more polite than Americans. And I've often noticed that my husband will hold a door. He still does it for me. He'll hold a door for me in a way that I notice my friends' husbands don't. Do you know what I mean? Because he comes from a culture where that's expected, that it's a gentlemanly way of behaving. And that's ridiculous that you would treat it that way.
and that's what I thought too. So I just said to myself, you know what? I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be calm, not say anything about it. Go on with my life and not worry with it. Now we've come to the end of the show, and I would like to thank you, Annie, for coming on. And this has been amazing. Because you're part of history. Like you're part of pop culture history. I mean, I know that
I appreciate that. And I have to tell you, this was an unusual podcast for me. I don't think I've done a podcast where the questions were so original. I mean, I get the same questions all the time, over and over and over. You actually asked questions that had to make me stop and think a little bit. And that's fun. It's stimulating. I like that.
well, it's all because of the title of the show, The Uncommonplace.
There you go.
But
I'll tell you, I'll come back next week and you'll ask me more questions, more surprise. I like those questions. They were very stimulating. I appreciate it. Oh, and everybody remember the Book of Annie. Annie Korzen is my name. The Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an accidental influencer
yeah, let them take a look. All right there.
on Amazon.
On Amazon. Now, everybody, we got to let the British lady send us out. And one odd thing, I know people always ask me about this. You're in West Virginia. What does a British lady have to do with? I just like her voice. So anyway, we are out of here, and let's let that outro play.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at oncommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.